Shalom, Israel. And a special shalom to everybody out there pushing this kingdom and this truth. I want to pull a quick precept real quick. I said this off camera, but I wanted to share it with you guys for everybody that's out there doing the work, because it's important to cover yourself for any type of speaking, right? Before you do a video, give counsel before you congregate, so you can make your election sure. You can stay on focus, get rid of some of these demons, man, that be trying to distract you, right? That brain fart spirit, you know what I'm saying? And these things are real. So I'm gonna pull out this precept, and anybody that's in this truth pushing this kingdom can read this before you do any speaking, right? And it's very powerful. It's in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 19, and it reads, "And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mysteries of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak," right? And that's powerful, man. Like I said, all manner of distractions will come your way when you're trying to push this truth, because the enemy's not playing no games either, and this ain't a game, right? And so moving forward, is my heart's desire and prayer that all Israel might be saved, as it states in Romans chapter 10 and verse 1, right? But who is Israel? Who are the Israelites? And that's what we're gonna kind of figure this thing out today. We're gonna get our feet wet in this truth and learn something real quick, right? Because everybody on this earth has a nationality, and it goes back to this book, right? You're not gonna see so-called African Americans or so-called black man, so-called white man, so-called Native Americans, Hispanics, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. You're not going to see those words in this Bible, but it's important to know who you are, so you know which side of the spectrum you fall on in this thing, right? Now, if you're Israel or an Israelite, you would be the direct descendants of the direct bloodline of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. Contrary to what everybody believes, everybody doesn't come out of Abraham, right? Everybody doesn't come out of Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. But these men were the renowned men, the mighty men that were chosen by the Most High God to push forth his kingdom, right? He looked on them and had respect unto them, right? So let's get Abraham real quick and see his significance and how this thing kind of trickled down all the way down to Jacob, right? Because Abraham started with a promise, and we're going to get that promise. Let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 17 and verse, I believe I want to start at verse 5. Okay, so verse 5, this is when the Most High is changing Abram's name to Abraham. This is the beginning of Abraham. Genesis 17 and verse 5. "Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee." This is going into the promise. "And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make the nations out of thee. And I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee," right? And we know Israel is that nation of kings and priests. "And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee," right? So this is the promise. Let me see if that's it on that. Yep, that was a C. So this is the promise, man, that he will establish a covenant. So the promise essentially became a covenant, and it trickled down through a specific people, through a specific bloodline, right? Not everybody, but a specific seed, right? And we're going to get that. And it clarifies this in the New Testament, right? And so there's really no excuse around this. Let's go to the book of Romans. Just in case you don't believe my words, let's get our brother Paul, right? And this is the Most High speaking through Paul. Let's go to the book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 4. No, let's start at verse 3. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites. Who are Israelites? To whom pertaineth. Now, when something pertains to you, it belongs to you, right? This Bible pertaineth to me because it belongs to me, right? So, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises, right? Keep in mind, you heard the words covenants and promises. So both the old covenant that we just read, the beginning of the old covenant with Abraham, to the new covenant are both of them belong to the Israelites. Those aren't my words. These are the words of the Most High, right? Speaking through Paul. I'm gonna read it again. Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises, right? And we're gonna kind of figure this thing out, man. So we know it started from Abraham, and we say it was gonna go through his seed. But what is a seed that came out of Abraham? Because Abraham had more than one kid, right? Everybody know he had Ishmael. But did it go to Ishmael? No, it bypassed Ishmael and went to Isaac, right? And why? Because the Lord made it that way. Because the Lord looked on Isaac and had respect unto Isaac. So let's get that real quick. In same book, same chapter, Romans chapter 9 and verse 7. Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So we know it didn't go to Ishmael, right? The seed that was called was Isaac. And there's a seed that was called out of Isaac, right? So we know this thing went from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. Now moving along, right? We're gonna get that. In verse, same book, same chapter, Romans chapter 9 and verse, in verse 9, Slaki. For this is the word of the promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah is the wife of Abraham, shall have a son. Their son was Isaac that was chosen. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac. Rebekah was Isaac's wife, right? And when she conceived, for the children being not yet born, neither having done good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. It's important to understand this scripture right here, because it's saying that God chose them before they was even created, before they could do either good or bad. And check out what he's about to say, right? It was said unto her that the elder shall serve the younger. Now, Isaac and Rebekah, they had twins, right? And the first one that came out was the oldest, and the second one that came out was the youngest. Not to try anybody's intellect, but that's how it goes when you have twins. The first one that came out was Esau. The second one that came out was Jacob, right? But it was told that the elder shall serve the younger. So Esau shall serve Jacob, right? And so when we go on, it's going to make sense. It was said unto her that the elder shall serve the younger, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated, right? And this is the Most High making his election sure. And a lot of people say that the Most High doesn't hate, but he clearly says in Malachi and in Romans that he hates Esau and hates him for no particular reason at all. But that's how but you know what I'm saying? He didn't hate him for no reason but his design, his creation, because he wanted to, because he's the potter and we're the clay. If he wants to create somebody to hate him, they can do that, right? Should we say that's not fair? Let's keep reading on to find out, right? It was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. A lot of us might ask this question in verse 14. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid, right? And he put that in there. It's beautiful that he put that in there, because a lot of people will say he's not just gonna hate nobody for no reason, or he hated Esau for what he did. But keep in mind that he told us that before they was even born, doing neither good or evil, he chose Jacob, and he hated Esau, right? He made his election sure early, right? So we know that this thing kind of trickled down from Abraham to Isaac and to Jacob. But where does Israel fall into this, right? Well, Jacob's name, through the power of the Most High, was changed to Israel. You know how Abram was changed to Abraham? Well, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Let's get that real quick in Genesis chapter 32. Genesis chapter 32 and verse 28, I believe. And it reads, and he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince has power with God and with men, and has prevailed, right? So this thing trickled down from Abraham to Isaac and to Jacob. We know that you're not counted as the seed of Abraham if you didn't come from the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And those are not my words. I just read it to you, plain upon tables, right? Now, Israel, or Jacob, had 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes of Israel. Let's get the name of those 12 sons real quick. And if you ever want to get the names real quick, you can always go to the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 2. And I want to say verse 1. This is the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 2 and verse 1. And these are the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, and Benjamin, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, right? And we know that Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and they became part of the tribes because Jacob took his grandsons in to be his own, right? And we know that through the Spirit of the Most High, prophecy, and truth in this book. Now, moving on. Now, today, even to this day, you would be considered an Israelite if you came from the seed, but it's important to understand who these people are. And if you're a so-called African American, a so-called Native American, a so-called Hispanic, you would be an Israelite according to this Bible. And we know this through history, right? Through artifacts, through the transatlantic slave trade. We know this through biology, through our genetic makeup. You know what I'm saying? We know this through geography, through looking at lands and the people that originated in those lands. And chiefly, we know this through prophecy, right? Through literature, through this book, right? Because no other people fit the things that are going on in this book, but us. And I'll drop some of the proofs in the link to the description. I think I'll drop the transatlantic slave map and where we went after our captivity. And I'll drop the 12 charts association chart. And I'll throw in there the the map, the tribe of Judah map that was in Africa on the slave coast, right? This is from Stanford, so this is legit, man. This is legit. There's no way around it, right? You may ask yourself, why in the world have I never heard this? A lot of people will say that Africa is our homeland or our motherland. And it kind of grinds my gears, right? Because if you get in this Bible, he tells you who your motherland is. Because and they said we were from Africa. The only reason why they said we were from Africa, and they taught you this in school, right? Is because when they came and got you from Africa. So they labeled you as an African because you kind of look similar to the people in Africa. You had dark skin, you know what I'm saying, and curly hair. But I'm here to tell you that you're not an African. You were actually in bondage when you were in Africa. And it's important to know that, right? And how simple our oppressors' minds are that they would consider us Africans. Keep in mind that would be like me saying, that would be like in today, right? If we had slaves in America or slaves in Italy, and they came and got us from Italy and brought us over to America, they would call us Italians. But we know we're not Italians, right? It's the same thing, and we're not Africans. And most importantly, because we can't be called African Americans. One, because those are two names of the white men, right? You got Leo Africanus and Amerigo Vespucci. So saying you're African American is like saying you come from two white men, and we know that's literally impossible through biology. We know that the genes of a so-called black man can make a so-called white man, but we also know that a so-called white man can't make no so-called black man with melanin, right? Unless he has some black within him, right? But you may ask why you haven't heard this before. And chiefly because it was prophesied and there was nothing we could do about it. Let's get that in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 32 and 26. This book is powerful, man. It's a Rubik's Cube, you know what I'm saying? And when you can finally understand this truth, you understand that all the answers are in here. And as the Bible says, we gotta search this whole thing. We gotta go line upon line, precept upon precept, and here a little and there a little. That's why I'm traveling throughout the whole Bible and not just going through 2 or 3 verses. You know what I'm saying? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26, and it reads, this is the Most High speaking. I said I would scatter them into corners, chiefly the 4 corners of the earth. 4 corners of the earth, what this means is that he would scatter us amongst the face of the earth, right? His people, that we are. And it's important to know that the so-called African Americans, Native Americans, and Hispanics are one nation. They try to divide us up, try to whitewash our seeds and tell us that we were different people, but we're all one nation, right? And he scattered us amongst the 4 corners of the earth. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. That's why now you don't consider yourself to be an Israelite. You consider yourself to be black. You consider yourself to be Puerto Rican. You consider yourself to be a Native American, right? And in the name of Israel is no longer a thing, right? Salakia, I forgot to show y'all the motherland, right? Got a little off track here, but let's go to the book of Galatians real quick. So we can stop saying that our motherland is Africa, right? And the book of Galatians, chapter 4, the book of Galatians, chapter 4, and verse 26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. So there you have it, man. Plain upon tables, Jerusalem is the mother of us all, right? Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 32 and 26. And I'll read it again, right? Now that we're kind of caught up in this thing. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. This is why you haven't heard this before. This is why you don't know you're from Jerusalem. This is why you think you're from Africa and that Egypt is your motherland, even though you was in captivity in Egypt. And they don't tell you that. They don't tell you this in school. They start your history off, right? The so-called black man's history in school with slavery. They didn't tell you before you was in slavery, you was a king, you were a priest, you know what I'm saying? You were mighty men walking around this earth. Let's get another precept to go upon that, right? Because it's in multiple places that he would do. And really throughout this whole Bible, he was saying that he would scatter us, right? Let's go to the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a cold man. Salakia. There it is. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 17 and verse 4, right? And it reads, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. Because it's important to know that he gave us his heritage. He gave us this direct bloodline, right? He chose this seed. And this is a club that you can't get into by getting jumped in, by pledging. You know what I'm saying? This is something that you had to be born into, right? Verse 4, and it reads, and now even thyself shalt discontinue from thy heritage which I gave thee. And it's powerful to know that he took this from us. It was powerful that he gave it to us, and it's powerful that he took it from us. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not. So, like we stated in Galatians, our motherland is Jerusalem. We never knew about the Americas, North America, South America, and all the lands of our captivity, and all the places where he would drive us, right? We were supposed to be in Jerusalem. And to this day, that's where we're supposed to be, right? And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. And that's not really forever, right? You got to understand in this Bible, he has a lot of figure of speeches. This is talking about we really just made him mad, right? And I can break that down by saying, man, I haven't seen you in a minute. Does that mean I necessarily haven't seen you in 60 seconds? Or does that mean I haven't seen you in a long time, right? You gotta have discernment in this Bible to understand, you know what I'm saying, what's going on. And chiefly, there's only one interpretation. If you have an interpretation that contradicts anything in this book, you have the wrong interpretation. And that's contrary to what they tell you also in the Christian church, that everybody has their own personal interpretation of the Bible, right? That's false, right? And so yeah, that's it on that. And these are reasons why we don't know who we are. This is why when you go to fill out the SATs, right? These exams, you go to the post office, you try to send something, or you try to apply somewhere, right? In that ethnicity portion in the documentation, that's why you don't see Israelite from the tribe of Judah. You don't see that on there. You don't see Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. You don't see Hebrew on there, right? You see African American or black, like we're a color, just a color, right? You see Native American on there, Hispanic or Latino, right? These are all names that our oppressors have given to us, right? And they chiefly beat it into us. Everybody done seen that movie series called Roots, right? It's pretty much a documentation series of how it was back in slavery times. And there was a famous slave, his name was Kunta Kinte, right? And Kunta Kinte came over on a ship. He was a mighty man, you know what I'm saying? And the slave man, the so-called white man, said, "What's your name, boy?" He said, Kunta Kinte. And the white man didn't really like that name. He didn't know what that name meant, right? And so he said, "Nah, your name gonna be Toby from now on." He asked him again, what's your name, boy? He said, Kunta Kinte, right? And he kind of beat that thing out of Kunta Kinte until he was saying his name was Toby. And that's what we done today. And we done took so much pride in taking the names of our oppressors, man, that we're a confused people. That's why we say our motherland is from Africa, right? A so-called white man's name, right? That's why we got last names. Our last names are like Brown and Smith and Jackson, right? We're not no Jacksons, man. We didn't come from Jacksons. You know what I'm saying? Those are our oppressor names, right? And they gave us these names to confuse us. And the Lord did that. He caused us to cease from being remembered, right? And we're gonna get into why. This is why we've been made low to a lower state. How can we come from being kings and priests to becoming niggas, right? You're not the children of Israel no more. Now you're Hispanics. You're beaners, right? You're so-called redskins, right? My job, my past job, right? I used to work in this clinic, and back when they changed the football team's name from Redskins, the so-called white people in there was throwing fits, man. You know what I'm saying? They was in there, you know what I'm saying, real deal mad. They had more respect of the football team than respect to the people that they were offending. And that's the pride of the so-called white man sometimes. And we gotta open our eyes and realize that we're nothing but a football team to them. We're still nothing but slaves. And we're in our land of captivity to this day, right? We have been made low as a people, but we are a special people, right? And I'm gonna get that. Let's get that first of all, right? And this is what I'm about to bring out. This is a banger. This is a classic, right? Everybody should know this, especially if you're an Israelite. You should know this, because now we're gonna kind of make our election sure. How do we really know that we are the Israelites, right? Let's get into some of this, man. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy and chapter 7, verse 6. It's a heavy hitter, right? And keep in mind, these aren't my words. These are the words of the Most High, right? Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 6, and it reads, "For thou art an holy people." Now we know that the book of Deuteronomy was written to the Israelites. This is right after we came out of the land of Egypt, right? Everybody seen the movie The Prince of Egypt, where Moses kind of had the staff and the waters went up on each side of him. And they kind of went through that thing, and then the waters kind of crashed on the Egyptians so they could get away, right? This is right after that. And this is right after we received the 10 Commandments, right? And we kind of went through a little trying time, a little famine, a little starvation. And we all started wanting to go back to Egypt. We were saying we like being in bondage better than out here starving. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we are today. When times get rough, we end up folding as a people. And we can't do that no more, right? So now we know that the book of Deuteronomy was written for the Israelites. Let's continue. "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth." These aren't my words. These are the Most High words, man. I gotta read that last part again. Above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Most High is racist, and it's important to know that. It's important to be real with yourself and acknowledge these scriptures, because there's no way around it, right? Let's get it in another book. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, right? The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 17 and verse 17. And it reads, "For in the divisions of the nations of the whole earth, he set a ruler," that he is the Most High. He set a ruler over every people. So he's looking down, right? And he's seeing all the nations. He's going through all the nations, and he's giving them rulers, chiefly gods, right? For the Asians, he gave Buddha. For the Greeks, he gave Zeus and Poseidon. And when he got to the nation of Israel, but Israel is the Lord's portion. So when he got to Israel, he kind of looked at them and was like, man, these guys kind of saucy. These guys they got some flavor, man. I like the way their skin changes color in the light. I like that. I like them. I like these type of people right here. He said, I'm going to be their people. I'm going to be their God, right? And that's important to know, because let's say you got 8 brothers and sisters, and you order a pizza. We know a pizza come with 8 slices. And your mom and your dad, they designate, chiefly your dad, right? He designates a piece of pizza to each one of your brothers and sisters. Now you want to be comfortable. You want to enjoy your pizza, right? So you go and take a shower real quick. You about to come downstairs and eat your pizza, and your pizza gone. And that's what the other nations have done to us. They have spoiled us. They've took the Most High's pizza, and he's mad. And he's going to do something about that, right? But moving on in this truth, man, it's important to know that you are a special people, and you were chosen to be above all people on the face of this earth. And those aren't my words. Again, I read those out of the King James Bible. You can get a King James Bible out of Walmart. You probably got a King James Bible sitting on your nightstand, to be honest, collecting dust, because you probably don't ever read it. But it's time to wake up and open your Bible and kind of get into this thing, so we can figure this thing out real quick, right? But if we are a special people, right, why are we living like we cursed? And mainly because we are cursed, right? And the Most High did that. And it's important to know that when you get into this thing, you're gonna notice that it's only a certain nation, a certain type of people that are going through these curses, right? So let's get that real quick, and why we're cursed. I'm gonna touch on that real quick. Let's go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. And it's truth, man, Deuteronomy is gonna be your friend, especially when you first coming into this thing and trying to get your feet wet, like we're doing today. It's a perfect book to stay in, right? We can use the whole Bible, but the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, is very ideal, man, right? Go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 15, right? And it reads, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." So it's bittersweet, because we know that you can only be an Israelite if you fall under these curses. If you can't fit what's going on in these curses, you're not an Israelite, right? And this is prophecy. This was set up. This was the Most High's design, right? And it was prophesied that we would wake up in this thing, right? In the land of our captivities. And we're still in our land of a captivity today, right? Our homeland is Jerusalem, but we ain't never been back. I've never met a so-called black man that's been back to Jerusalem, right? If you have, you can put it in the comments down below, but chances are it's slim to none. All right, let's get that in the book of Baruch, chapter 2, right? The book of Baruch. And this is and you might ask why your Bible doesn't have the book of Baruch, right? This is the original King James Bible with the Apocrypha, right? The book of Baruch, chapter 2 and verse 30, I want to say, right? "For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people." Stiff-necked means hard-headed, right? And we're still hard-headed today, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know a nation that's more hard-headed than us, right? We don't want to listen to nobody, right? And that's on a carnal level. For I knew that they would not hear me because it is stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves. So it's important to understand that this was all prophecy, that we would remember ourselves in our land of captivity, right? So it's important to know that this whole thing was set up and designed, and it's not a mystery to why you didn't know who you were, but now you do. This whole thing was set up in the Most High's design, and another reason, man, prophecy is so powerful, and this book is so powerful, right? Let's get another one to touch on that. Go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter. We traveling all over this thing today, man, and that's how you got to be when you come in this truth. You got to soak up the whole thing, right? You got to figure out the whole matter. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Now, this is chiefly talking about the curses, right? The curses that I'm about to read. They will be upon thy seed forever for a sign and a wonder. Everybody gonna know who you are because it's gonna be upon your seed forever. This is how we understand who we are. This is how we fulfill that prophecy in Baruch that said that we remember ourselves in the land of our captivities, right? So let's get some of these curses, man. And let's just see who fits these curses. What nation of people, right? Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. When you look into the cities, man, who's living in the ghettos? Who's living in the slums, right? Is it the so-called white man? Is it the so-called Asian man? Man, the only time you see an Asian man in the so-called hood is they have a nail salon or they selling you some dog meat, right? I don't want to hear no exceptions about, oh, when I was in the projects and when I was living in the PJs, I did have this one Chinese man that stayed around the corner, and he was always mad, and he was always crossing his legs and praying to a bald man. No, man, this is talking about a nation of people. What nation of people is known to be in the ghettos and the slums, right? This book makes it plain upon tables, and these curses only fit up one nation of people. Keep that in mind. Let's go. And who was cursed in the field, right? We don't even have to go down that road, because anybody with any type of intellect knows about slavery. That's the only thing that they push about our history in school, right? It's slavery, and they made a mistake, but it's all good because the Most High set it up that way to fulfill prophecy. Cursed shall thou be in the field. Who was in the cotton fields? Who was in the sugarcane fields? Who was out there chopping wood? And if we didn't, we was getting our backs beat in, right? Only one nation of people, right? So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Let's get another curse right here, right? And they say this is the worst curse. They say this is the curse that ruined our nation as a people, and why we can't come back to this day, right? But hopefully through the Most High, we can all come back and fix this thing. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, right? A man that is tender among you and very delicate, that would be the nicest guy you would meet, right? He's always trying to keep the peace, right? It's always a good time when he shows up, because you know what I'm saying, he's gonna have you kind of smiling, and his spirit just kind of hops on you, and you kind of just get happy in this thing, right? But let's see what has happened to him. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother. What nation of people has the slogan called black on black crime? Hey, when you bring up the cops killing us every day, what do they say? Well, black people kill black people all the time, right? It's not just us, right? Just because we're black and we kill each other, you know what I'm saying? First of all, that doesn't give you a right to help kill us off, right? That doesn't give you a right to do that. But in doing so, they came up with that phrase, black on black crime. And you don't see that attached to any other nation, right? You don't see on the news them talking about Chinese on Chinese crime or white man on white man crime. They don't do that. Mainly because they don't want to destroy their image, right? But we know through prophecy that it was set up from the Most High that we would be put, that staple would be put on our nation, right? Black on black crime, right? He turned something in that was bad, and he used it so we can remember ourselves. Black on black crime. No other nation fits that curse of having that title of being evil towards each other. That's what, like, my favorite movie, my favorite show right now would be Snowfall. And even in Snowfall, right? You got the essays, and you got Franklin in them, right? Franklin's a so-called black man, right? And when Franklin's soldiers kind of went in their territory, they kind of stabbed them up and took their life, man, right? And that's that I being evil towards your brother, man. Now, it's not just black on black crime, it's black people on Hispanic crime, right? Black people on Native American crime. It's not going to change till we all come back together. Reading on, the eye shall be evil towards his brother and the wife of his bosom, right? That's the wife that's so close to him, right? And within his bosom. This is why we out here prostituting our wives. We out here we're out here beating the daughters of Zion. We out here beating our wives. We out here cheating on them, right? Leaving them, right? Wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children which he shall leave. The remnant of his children are the children that he begot, right? The children that he made, that he shall leave. Now, what nation of people is known for leaving their children, man? That's in the stereotype list. You know what I'm saying? It was so-called black men, right? We like to eat watermelon. We got big lips, and we eat fried chicken, and we don't know our daddy, right? They're either dead in jail or they just left. They're deadbeats. No other nation fits these curses, man. It's in a stereotype, and this was set up by the Most High, that these stereotypes were placed upon us to fulfill prophecy. And that's deep, man. That's deep when you finally understand that. All right, let's get one more curse. The banger, right? The dagger, the two-edged sword, right? This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Now, it's important to know that we didn't go back to Egypt and serve into another captivity after we left, right? So what does this word Egypt mean? And it's important to know that every word in this Bible has a meaning, right? And every phrase in this Bible has a meaning. And if you're not well understood, Salakia, in the foundations of this thing, you don't get your feet wet, and you kind of jump in not knowing how to swim, you're gonna drown, man. So it's important to understand the things in the words in this Bible, so you can put two and two together, because this whole thing is contextual and woven together. That's why we read here a little and there a little. So let's look at what the word Egypt means, right? What does it mean where he says he was going to bring us into Egypt again on ships? Let's get that in the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So that word Egypt can be interchangeable with the word bondage. Just about any time you see the word Egypt in the Bible, replace it with the word bondage, and bingo, right? It should light up red. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Who was brought into bondage on ships? Keep in mind, bondage is another word for slavery. Who went to slavery on ships? We don't even got to spend a long amount of time on that one, man. Hey, man, in back in school, they used to have this thing called planking, right? And everybody used to get stiff and then lay on things like a mailbox or something, right? Lay on awkward things, like a table or something. But they used to, and Bow Wow was really like the first person that shed light on this, to my knowledge. But he brought out, hey man, this planking thing is really senile, because they used to plank us on these slave ships, one on top of the other, right? One on top of the other. We wasn't in there sitting comfortable. No, they threw you in there and stacked you on top of each other like you was some blocks, man. And people was in there not being able to use the bathroom. We was going to the bathroom on ourselves. We had women going through their menstrual cycles, right? Bleeding on each other. And it was kind of like the survival of the fittest. If you made it through that voyage, you know what I'm saying? It still wasn't good for you because you got sold into slavery. And we're going to get that in the Bible. In the Bible, right? And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. It's talking about that homeland in Jerusalem. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. And no man shall buy you. What it means by no man shall buy you is that no man shall redeem us out of our circumstances, right? Now, we went into slavery and they sold us for bondmen and bondwomen. That's deep, right? Because we know the word bondage correlates to the word slavery. So if you're a bondman, that means you're a slave man, right? You're a male slave. If you're a bondwoman, you're a slave woman. You're a woman slave, right? And so when we keep reading, let's read that again. Sold unto your enemies. Important to know who your enemy is in this thing. They're not your friends. They're your enemies, and they still are to the day. And everybody kind of knows that. We just kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt all the time. And we're a nation of people that's just so forgiving. You know what I'm saying? If you watch that movie American Skin, we're so forgiving. And at the end, they'll kill us anyway, right? They'll kill us anyway. We'll spare their life, and they'll kill us anyway, right? We're the only nation of people that'll take that slap on the cheek, right? And not say nothing, man. We'll go out there and do silly things like rob ourselves, right? That's that I being evil towards your brother again, right? Thou shalt see it no more again, and there shall you be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. We have plenty of men like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, right? People look over to Rosa Parks, and all she did was sit on a bus. You know what I'm saying? Like she did something spectacular, not knocking the sister, you know what I'm saying? But if that's who we have to look up to, it's a problem, man, right? Our mighty men in the Bible, they was standing 10 toes down for this thing. They was willing to die, right? They was not just go to jail, you know what I'm saying? They was ready to get to work. They was trying to get to work. And none of these people could save us out of our predicament. We're still in our predicament to this day. We're still getting hung in the streets to this day. We still don't know our language to this day, right? These things will be upon us for a sign and a wonder forever. Keep that in mind, man, because this book is powerful, right? So now that we know that we are chosen, right? We know we're in these curses. We know we're made a low state, right? We know that they place bywords on us so we can forget who we are. How do we kind of get back to who we were as a people, a nation of kings and priests, right? And how do we fix the predicament that we're in? That's the question that's at hand for almost everybody that's a so-called black man, Hispanic, or Native American. We don't know how to figure this thing out. And the only way we can figure this thing out is through this Bible, right? The only way we can figure this thing out is through this Bible. And coming to this truth, and you knowing you an Israelite, you just can't know the truth and go out there and be a nigga man no more, or a nigga woman, right? There's things that are required of you. You can't just be out there knowing the truth and still be in all manner of wickedness. So let's get that real quick in Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12, right? Deuteronomy chapter 10, in verse 12, and it reads, and now Israel, right? What does the Lord thy God require of thee but to fear the Lord thy God? To fear him means to respect him, right? So if you were in your room, you was playing the game, and your dad came in and he said, do the dishes. You still play the game. He come back with that belt. You gonna get up. You kind of, okay. You know what I'm saying? You kind of get up and you kind of do the dishes, right? Because you fear your father, not really fear him, but fear the wrath that he can pour out on you. And that's really essentially just having respect for your father, giving honor to your father, right? So it was commanded to us that, and now Israel, what does the Lord thy God require of thee but to fear the Lord, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good, right? We know that he gave us commandments, and we know that they were for our good, right? He told us that he gives us commandments, and they're not grievous. They're not hard, man. And it's the only way we can get out of this this circumstance or this situation that we're in. And on that, man, I'm gonna say shalom. I hope the Spirit bear witness. Stay tuned to the next video, because in the next video I'm gonna go in deeper of what the Lord requires of us and how to get out of this situation, right? I hope the Spirit bear witness. Shalom.